Hey, what's good? It's your boy, Mixtape Moth, and today I'm going to hit y'all with a review of the new Judas and Black Messiah soundtrack. Let's get to it. Alright, so this is the second hip-hop soundtrack that we have gotten within a month and a half of the new year. Now, in the 90s and early 2000s, that wouldn't be very noteworthy, but considering the lack of soundtracks that we have seen within the last decade or so, it's kind of a big deal. This Judas and the Black Messiah soundtrack probably couldn't have arrived at a better time, given that it is Black History Month combined with the social justice fervor that has been reignited in light of the George Floyd killing and in response to police brutality in general and the fight against systematic white supremacy. This soundtrack contains a whopping 22 tracks with a total runtime of an hour and 8 minutes. So it's a long one, but thankfully it wasn't too much of a chore for me to get through. This project was executive produced by Hit-Boy, who many in the mainstream would consider to have been the producer of the year in 2020. And even though he only produced 5 songs, his sonic influence is stamped throughout this whole thing. But with that being said, let me go ahead and give y'all this track by track breakdown. The opener, COINTELPRO December 4th, is an intro containing words from Fred Hampton Jr. It sets a strong revolutionary Black Panther tone right off the bat. The first actual song is Fight For You by H.E.R. It's an R&B record that gives off 70s blaxploitation vibes. The horns and bass line are extra funky. I think H.E.R.'s singing was on point and the message was strong. Now it's a little long at over 4 minutes, but I really have no issues with this track. Song 3 is EPMD by Nas, produced by Hit-Boy. This is Nas giving a nod to one of the most underappreciated rap duos of all time, EPMD. Now, aside from the hook, Nas does not talk about EPMD on this song, but I feel a record like this could possibly inspire the younger generation to check out EPMD for the first time. Is pretty much going in his La Cosa Nostra bag and giving us some mafioso rap and boss talk. Some lines that stood out are Murcielago, Mob Flow, 20 Chevy Tahoe, then I'm sitting low, I'm not hiding though, condos in different time zones, way before y'all was double cupping the styrofoam. He also talks about his deceased homie Ill Will and how he had the medallion with the emblem of a Mercedes, and if he plans to sell his masters, he's going to need a trilly. Overall, this was a solid song from Nas. It kind of picks up sonically where he left off with King's Disease. Yeah, it's just a banger, not mind-blowing, but definitely something dope to bump in the whip or to play in the gym. The bottom line is Nas didn't disappoint. Track 4 is Welcome to America by Black Thought featuring C.S. Armstrong and Angela Hunt or Hunte. Pardon me if I get that pronunciation wrong. Black Thought is giving us some of the most thought-provoking and socially conscious bars on this soundtrack. I also feel in terms of his flow, lyrics, and overall delivery that Black Thought outperformed and out-rapped everyone on this soundtrack. While Nas and Jay both had dope verses, I feel Black Thought was more in pocket and more on beat than the two of them. It's insidious and it's always been hideous. I had to tread water and run, be amphibious. I mean, there's a ton of quotables on this thing, but I'm just gonna leave y'all with that. Now, this is produced by Sean C, and it has a pro-black anthem feel. I guess you could say it's a revolutionary banger. What comes next is another highlight, What It Feels Like, featuring Jay-Z and the late great Nipsey Hussle. This contains a gorgeous, luxurious, and triumphant instrumental. The Nipsey verse that they extracted did not feel out of place, thankfully, and he sounded great alongside Jay-Z. So let's talk about Hove's verse, which has been the most discussed and analyzed on social media over the last few days. But do I like this and think it was a dope verse? Most definitely. Do I think it's mind-blowing and one of Hove's best? No. Look, here's the thing with Jay-Z. He's always had this ability to sprinkle in socially conscious and revolutionary content without people even realizing it in some cases. He's been dropping pro-black references for a long time now, so I don't think he said anything out of the ordinary on here. Scorpion Bricks, way before Aubrey's double disc. 40 on my lap, clap sound like 40 did the mix. Okay, I like how he opened the verse. I thought that was clever. You let them crackers storm your capital, put their feet up on your desk, and yet you talking tough to me? I lost all my little respect. I'm selling weed in the open, bringing folks home from the feds. I know that's payback's gonna be mean. I'm saving all my little bread. So the first part, he's speaking on the events that happened at the Capitol. But like I said, this is nothing new under the sun for Jay-Z, as he's been known to address current event social issues in music a lot. Now, I suppose one could ask, was this a better verse than what Nas had on EPMD? And my answer would have to be yes. But I don't find Jay's rapping on this soundtrack to be better than Black Thoughts. But overall, this was a very strong song and one of the best on the soundtrack, in my opinion. What comes after is Broad Day by Hit-Boy. Not only did Hit-Boy provide the beat, but he's rapping on the whole song. Look, I'm not gonna hold you. Hit-Boy on the mic doesn't do anything for me at all. Like, his bars weren't bad. They really weren't, but I didn't feel anything from them at all. They are just there. Nonetheless, this was a decent instrumental with a nice beat shift, but that's about it. Track 7 is Plead the 45th, featuring Smino and Saba. Now, these are two younger artists coming out of Chicago. I'm not familiar with their material, but I did like what they did on this particular song. They are spitting smooth and eclectic flows over this real chill instrumental. Smino, pardon me if I'm getting the name wrong, states, "They see my hue and they want to do me just like Huey P. Newton." Saba has a solid verse as well. "My guy's incarcerated, cops still living above the law. The city's so cold, I had to leave out quicker than the car defrost." It's sharp reality rap with a message. Up next, we have Something Ain't Right featuring H.E.R and Rapsody. This contains a slick, soulful, and twangy instrumental, and there's somewhat of a reggae vibe on the hook. Sonically, this has more of that experimental rap feel. I mean, it's definitely the kind of vibe I would expect from an artist like H.E.R or Earth Gang. Let's see, out of the two, I would say that I was most impressed by H.E.R's verse. "I don't fear anyone but the maker, cause we never murder hate, but can murder a hater." It's not my favorite song, but it was still solid. Right after, we have Letter to You by BJ the Chicago Kid. All right, this is an ultra smooth and soulful R&B ballad. It has this vintage 70s soul quality. I really have no complaints with this, as it's smooth riding music. Track 10 is On Your Mind by Lil Durk. Now, this is the kind of content that I prefer to hear from Lil Durk. You know, the more heartfelt, voice of the city and introspective type Durk, and that is exactly what you're getting on this track. He is rapping over a sample that Mozzie used on his last album. The song was Too Much Pride, but Durk says, "I just wonder if I'm too grown to shed tears. My soul ain't been the same. I've been so damaged through the years." Track 11 is Appraise by White Dave. I'm not familiar with this artist, but I'm guessing, since it was produced by Hit-Boy, that White Dave has some affiliation with him. But anyhow, we are getting a crunchy yet melodic instrumental from Hit-Boy. It's low key, but actually a really well produced beat. White Dave is spitting some gripping bars about racism, politics, and black pride. Some lines that caught my attention were, "My body ached from all the stress from my ancestors. We could influence the planet if we stand together. I've been losing sleep for a while because home ain't even safe. Pigs really murdered Brianna in her own space." Immediately following is All Black by Herbo. So with the title, you might expect this song to be about black empowerment, but it's really just a banger with Herbo talking heavy street shit. I did, however, enjoy the anthem-like production. It's definitely something that slaps in the whip, but I can't say that I was in love with his flow on this one. What comes next is I Declare War by Nardo Wick. This was another artist who I was unfamiliar with, but I see he's coming out of Jacksonville, Florida, and has received cosigns from Future and Lil Durk. This is produced by Cardo, and it has that late night eerie trap vibe. There's also an aggressive quality to the beat, as well as Nardo's tone. Hold your middle fingers in the air and scream, fuck peace. We showed we wanted peace, but they didn't want to see. Now it's fuck the peace. It's time to terrorize the streets. So with these lyrics, Nardo Wick appears to represent a younger kind of protester who is rightfully fed up by the injustice and is probably less likely to turn the other cheek like elders who would embrace the MLK doctrine would. Track 14 is No Profanity by Pooh Shiesty. He manages to rap his entire verse about street related things without using any profanity. So I guess we can credit him for that, especially as a young trap artist. I know it sounds like the bar is real low for trap artists, but still he is showing some creativity here, I guess. Yeah, this was a solid track. Wasn't blown away by it, but it was all right. What follows is Last Man Standing by Polo G. Now, Polo G is a younger artist coming out of Chicago who I've been checking on for a minute. This is yet another moment where I feel he shows his strengths as a songwriter and storyteller. He is able to stick to a specific topic or theme in his song. Them babies starving, their parents can't even afford Pampers. No wonder why it's hustle or die and clap hammers. He dropped out of school. He only speaking that trap grammar. They teaching us lies. Them facts scatter. Don't want us with self-love. Missing history ain't got answers. As cliche as it may sound, Polo G cannot miss right now. This is definitely one of my top 5 songs from this soundtrack and easily the best song from a younger trap artist. Track 16 is Respect My Mind by Dom Kennedy. This is the Dom Kennedy that I love to hear, where he is dropping jewels and making motivational street rap. This contains a very wavy and smooth beat. It has that late night cruising through the city kind of vibe. Initially, I thought it was produced by Hit-Boy, but I see it was done by Mike and Keys. No, it does not have a pro-black theme, but it does have a motivational anthem-like quality to it, and sonically, it's one of my favorites from the soundtrack. Up next is Revolutionary by Herbo and Bump J. I believe this is the second or third time that these two artists have collaborated. And let me tell you, if there is one artist who can make Herbo step up his flow and his lyrics, it is Bump J. And I guess we could throw Common in there too. This is easily one of the most conscious verses that I've heard from Herbo. And to top it off, he's actually rapping on beats, so the offbeat critics need to chill out for a second and hear him out. But I'm still counting my blessings, traumatized, so we riding with Wessons, locked up and loaded with rounds of protection, profound with aggression. You found us on Essex, we drowning in lessons and rounded in sessions, trying to pound out the sound of oppression. Bump J had a dope verse as well. This was also produced by Hit-Boy. I like the soulful and melancholy vocal sample throughout. Yeah, this was another highlight for me. After this is Teach Me by H.E.R. You are getting some very soulful crooning from H.E.R. on top of this funky instrumental. I love the drums. It's a very feel-good and vibe-heavy record. I have no complaints with this one whatsoever, and it's actually one of the dopest R&B songs on here in my opinion. Track 19 is Contagious by Safe and Kiana Lede. Apologies if I got the name wrong. Look, this one wasn't for me. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was a little too sugary and syrupy for my liking. Other people may rock with this, but it wasn't my cup of tea. Track 20 is Rich and Problems by A$AP Rocky. So it's good that we are hearing something new from Rocky. Without a doubt, we are getting a dusty sounding piano loop. It's melodic and bouncy, a dope beat for Rocky to float over, and that's exactly what he does. His flow still sounds intact, and he was able to speak on topics dealing with fame and racism. This album closes out with an instrumental outro from Hit-Boy. It's a nice blend of synthesizers and strings. It's pretty suspenseful sounding. There's one last track, and it's a bonus song by Rakim entitled Black Messiah. This is a dope biography on Fred Hampton. Rakim has this knack for painting pictures with his words. It's a very easy to follow and concise story on Hampton's life. I'm sure most of us have heard this sample used before, but I didn't mind it since it is a classic soul beat. The only thing that I didn't care for was that Rakim's vocals sounded a little lowered. I mean, it really wasn't a problem, but it did bug me slightly. However, it was great to see the God Rakim on a soundtrack in 2021. Overall, I give this project a rating of a strong 3.5 mics. I feel this was a well produced soundtrack. I didn't have an issue with any of the beats sounding whack. As far as the featured artists, I think most of them rose to the occasion and managed to deliver in their own ways. Now, some stuck on topic more than others, but overall enough did, in my opinion. This soundtrack also had a good ratio between rap and R&B songs, as I prefer soundtracks to be more rap centered. As far as the content, there were a lot of substantive and poignant lyrics to be found. I also liked how the track list featured a nice blend between old school and new school artists. On the other hand, I really would have liked to have seen a couple bigger name rappers on here. I'm not saying that artists like Nardo, Wick, and White Dave did a bad job or that they shouldn't receive any shine, but I really would have been more excited to hear from artists like Big Crit, J. Cole, Mozzie, Bun B, Dave East, Conway, T.I., even Meek Mill. See where I'm going with this? And one more issue that I had was the length. Now, as I said earlier, this wasn't too much of a slog for me to get through, but I definitely feel this track list could have been trimmed down a little bit. I did notice that I had a really hard time focusing towards the middle of the soundtrack, but at the end of the day, I think it was dope that we got another soundtrack in 2021 that actually sounded dope. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like socially conscious, pro-black, and uplifting content. Hopefully this can start a new trend where we see hip-hop soundtracks more often. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I'm just putting it out there. My favorite tracks include EPMD, Welcome to America, What It Feels Like, Last Man Standing, Respect My Mind, Revolutionary, Teach Me, Rich and Problems, and Black Messiah. Let me know what y'all thought of this soundtrack in the comment section below. What should I check out next? It's your boy, Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. As always, it's peace and blessing. Judas and the Black Messiah soundtrack 1.